Hi everybody, my name is Renee and I want to share with you a bit more about my story. You may have previously seen my video on church hurt and how I survived church hurt, but that story is only one aspect of my story. And while I could have put it all together in one, I felt like there was enough of my church hurt story to not only show you that aspect of my life, but there's also so much more. So I wanted to bring you here today. I want to start off with a quote from Paul, and I'm going to change it just a teeny bit just to fit me a little bit. I'll put it on screen. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. And when I became a woman, I put childish ways behind me. Don't we all? But a little bit of backstory about me. I am the oldest child born to my parents. I love my parents. My parents were a loving couple who have been together longer than I've been alive, and I have 5 younger siblings. I love my siblings and I am so thankful for my family. I think there are so many people who grow up and go through pain and then leave their family of origin behind, and that is difficult. And while there has definitely been pain in my family of origin, I think there's also beauty in the fact that we were all able to come together and be stronger as a family. Let me back up just a little bit though. When I was 5 years old, I came to Christ. I had seen my mom and my dad be involved in church. I had been homeschooled. My family was homeschooling me. We not only were invested in our local body of believers, but I could see God actively at work in my life and the lives of my family. And I wanted that too. There were things already happening in my life that were hard, but not quite yet. Just a year or two later, I was baptized. I remember I was sitting at church and we had talked about Lydia and how she was a seller of purple cloths. If you don't know this story, it's in the book of Acts, and Lydia is a Gentile and she is being met by Paul, and she invites Paul and his companions into her home and he tells them the gospel. And this woman, who is a businesswoman and a very strong woman, comes to the Lord, and her whole family are baptized. And to me that was like, oh, I should be baptized. So I was. It wasn't long after that a few things started happening in my life. One, I knew I wanted to be in ministry, not just because my dad was in ministry, but because I genuinely felt a call on my life, even though I didn't know what that would look like yet. And the second thing is my sister Bailey, who was sibling number 4 in their family. She was the 4th child. She got really sick. She had epilepsy, which if you don't know what epilepsy is a seizure disorder that is not as uncommon as people think, but her form of epilepsy was very severe. She had seizures that not only were incapacitating, but involved her entire body. And it was scary. Fast forward a little bit, we ended up moving from where I was born, which was in Arizona, up to Minnesota, where my family really became involved in a great community. And my sister Bailey was still having seizures, and my faith was still growing. But what I remember is seeing these times where my sister was so sick and we would be stuck going to people's houses. But before we went there, I would gather my siblings together and be like, we need to pray. Unfortunately, God does not answer prayers in the way we always want him to. And Bailey continued to be sick. She continued to have seizures, and it wrecked her tiny body. because my sister was having so many health issues, my mom couldn't homeschool us anymore, so she had put me in public school. And while I made some friends at public school, I didn't fit in. I was the new kid. I spoke differently because I was from a different part of the country. I looked different. I thought different. And because of that, I experienced a lot of bullying throughout my 2nd grade year through my 5th grade year. It was really difficult. I was called names. I was excluded, and I didn't tell anybody. I don't know why I didn't tell anybody, but it just didn't feel like what was happening at school really mattered in the long term because of what was happening at home. And so I went home and I hung out with my actual friends, and I helped with my siblings. We did those things you do as a kid where you build forts in the woods and you go running around barefoot in shorts and just having a blast, riding bikes. And overall it was great, but there was that hurt, the pain, an unknown, where there was the hurt of my sister being sick, facing the bullying, feeling alone because I didn't have a lot of friends and we had moved across the country. A few years later, my dad was going to college and I was still going to school, and we got a call early one morning that my grandma had passed away. This is my dad's mom. She used to live with us. She was somebody we adored. She was somebody who would send me gummies in the mail, and because they were from Arizona, they would get to her house completely melted in a brick of gummy. And losing her was so hard. And what was even harder was I wasn't able to go to her funeral. So I remember for weeks afterwards, I'd be at church and I would look over and I'd see someone who looked kind of like my grandma, and I'd be excited because my grandma was there, only to realize she was never going to be there. And that was hard. A few years, let's fast forward a couple years, my family moved from Minnesota to a town in North Dakota, and we were still dealing with my sister's epilepsy. We were involved in a church plant out there, and couple years, we were there for 1.5 years or so, and my sister got very sick. Sicker than just the seizures, sicker than she had been for years and years. You see, Bailey's epilepsy was a type that was medication resistant, and while I had known that she probably wasn't going to live long, I wasn't ready for it. So in 2009, she got so sick to the point where she was a shell of her former self at only 5.5 years old. And my family was finally able to take her to her doctors in the Twin Cities. And while there, she just kept getting sicker. My grandma came, my mom's mom, and she drove us through a blizzard to get to my sister's hospital and visit my family for Christmas. We got there, and Christmas Day 2009 was beautiful. We were at an apartment attached to the hospital that was for like mid to long term hospital stays for families. And it was a beautiful Christmas. Bailey was able to come hang out with us at the apartment. We opened gifts. We got blankets from the hospital. We got games from the hospital. The hospital really took care of us. And Bailey went back to the hospital that night. And the next morning changed everything. I woke up and I remember thinking, man, I should have given Bailey a hug. And next thing I know, my mom gets a phone call and I just see my mom scream and collapse to the floor because we got a call that Bailey was gone. And they were trying to bring her back, but she had passed. And my dad went running. My mom put my youngest brother in the stroller, and we were running through the hospital, through the underground tunnels, trying to get to her room just to say goodbye. But it was too late. It was too late. She was gone. It was the day after Christmas, 2009, and my world was shattered. I was so angry with God. I was asking, why didn't you heal Bailey? I was asking why he allowed her to suffer the way she did. And I was wondering why. I remember thinking back to an account of Jesus in the Gospels where he raised a young girl from the dead. And I thought he could do the same for Bailey. And I prayed for that. And he didn't. I was shaken. I knew that prayer was powerful, or it could be, but I also saw that it just wasn't happening for Bailey. You see, I was reminded of just how hard it would be. We went home back to North Dakota, and life went on. We had a funeral for Bailey. It was in January, and I remember it just being so hard. But the thing that really shocked me out of that was it was a cloudy, dreary day. We were getting ready to leave church, and I just saw the skies part open, and this ray of sunny blue sky came and just showed the way to the gravesite. And I truly believe that was God allowing himself to be shown and say that he was bringing her to a better place, and that she was in a better place, a place where she was healed, and a place where she wasn't suffering. But that didn't help me very much. You see, my whole family didn't live nearby, and my friends were gone, and I just didn't know what to do. Over the next month, we drove to Minnesota, had a memorial service for my sister. Again, that was hard. I remember that was the first time my friend was like, here, try mascara. And I was like, it's gonna run all over my face. What's wrong with you? But she's like, no, it's waterproof. And it was, but it was weird. And then after we were there and had another heartbreaking service, we took a family trip down to Arizona to our family's home church. We had another memorial service, and it was nice to be down there. We were hanging out with our extended family, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my grandma, my grandpa, and family friends who we hadn't seen in years because we'd been living on the other side of the country. But it was hard, and I didn't know what to do. It was during that trip where we were going to all these memorial services for my sister that I learned more about the band Superchick. I probably heard them before, but a couple songs really stood out to me. The first one was called We Live, which talks about these people who have lost something or someone unexpectedly, and they are just trying to figure out how to live. And I loved the chorus, which goes, we live, we love, we forgive, and we never give up, because the days we are given are a gift from above, and today we remember to live and to love. You see, I had to learn that even through my pain, I had to live and I had to love. And that was hard. But we went back home, and my faith was just shaken. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what I was gonna do. But that summer, I was able to go to a camp, and camp ministry has been something throughout my life that I have learned to love and appreciate and enjoy. But I think it all started here. It was the summer around the time Bailey died. I don't remember if it was the summer before or the summer after, but I was broken. And I remember talking to one of the counselors, and I was bawling because of everything going on with Bailey, everything going on at home. I felt alone. I felt like God, if he was there, he didn't care. And this counselor just encouraged me so much and helped strengthen my faith so much. And it was at that camp that I truly, though I had known God for years, he became real to me in a way. Not that life was easy after that, but I had hope that he was there and he actually cared. But it wasn't long that, again, my family moved across the country, this time to Oregon. And I was done. I didn't know what it was, but I was depressed. I didn't know what depression was. I was depressed. I was self-harming. I just wanted to disappear. I wanted to run off into the woods and never be seen again. I would have done anything to not be there. Not that I wanted to die, but I just wanted to feel like I was in control of something, even if I really wasn't. Thankfully, at that time, I got to go to this youth group, which I talked more about in my other video. But I met Jenny, who was my youth leader at the time, and she really helped me work through a lot of things. And over the years we lived there, she encouraged me and helped me. Not that I stopped self-harming at that point, not that I stopped being depressed. I was very depressed. I recently stumbled across this picture and I was so depressed, as you can see from the photo. But again, my family moved. And we moved to Wisconsin, and a part of the country I'd never really been to before. And I had fun. And I was still self-harming. I still wanted to disappear and run away and disappear into the woods. I considered packing my bags and just living out in the woods. I never did, but I wanted to. It was also while we were living there that I got to start doing things like working at camp. And I worked at this camp where over the years my faith grew and grew and grew. But my senior year of high school was coming up, and I was at camp that summer before senior year. And things weren't going great. I was having an allergic reaction that I'd never had before. I was covered in hives from head to toe. My face was swollen, and I was miserable. And while I was at camp, things were getting worse. My family was 10 hours away, and they didn't really know what was going on. And even though it was bad, I was like, what am I doing wrong, God? And I felt in part that it was a punishment for something. Whether that was my self-harm or my attitude, I didn't know. But I was diagnosed with a really bad allergic reaction to mold that the end of that summer, after my mom finally came and picked me up and saw just how miserable I was. But I was able to work through that, and not only did God work through that, he did something that really made my life interesting. He allowed me to see that it didn't matter. My appearance wasn't the thing that mattered. What mattered was just being obedient in that season. A couple years later, my hives finally went away, and I was back at camp, and I love this camp. But I was at this camp, and I was on what they call seniors or leadership staff. And while I was on leadership staff, I had the opportunity to go to a church a few towns away, and they were having a baptism service. And I had been baptized when I was 7, but God had been working in my life. You see, there was a song that was stuck in my head, and it was also by Super Chick. And it goes, "After all this has passed, I still will remain. After I've cried my last, there'll be beauty from pain." You see, it was at that summer that God delivered me. I wasn't self-harming anymore. I still had the occasional depression, but God really saved me and was working in my life in a way that I just didn't know what was going to be happening. So that summer, I went to this baptism service, and I wasn't planning on being baptized, but I felt God telling me, go be baptized, as a renewal of my relationship with him. So I did. Not that things were perfect. Even after that, I had gone through a season the year before where I lived in my car for 4 months, not because I wasn't welcome at home, but because I was so stubbornly independent that I thought I knew best, more so than God, more so than my parents. But I just wanted to be that way. And I'd repented of that, and God had really been working in my life to the point where I was actually, even though I'd been doing camp ministry summers for the last 4 or 5 years, I was called to go work at a camp in Washington for a year, doing an internship, learning ministry, learning so many good things. But it was also that year that a lot of stuff happened. God continued to work on me, and a verse from James really stood out to me. It's probably my favorite verse of all time. James wrote, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds." Those trials from my life, losing my sister, moving, bullying, all of those things. Because, James says, you know that the testing of your faith develops perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it'll be given to you. And that verse to me was just such an encouragement, because God had used my pain and my suffering to bring joy into my life in a way that I didn't know was possible. After I left Sambika, I lived with my parents for about a year, and then I moved to where I'm currently living. And I found a community here that I could never have expected. I have lived where I live now since the summer of 2019, which is the longest I have ever been anywhere. It is the most enmeshed in my community that I have ever been in. And God was working it all. And it just reminded me so much of this passage in Isaiah where God is telling Isaiah this. Remember this. Keep it in mind. Take it to heart, you rebels. Remember the former things, those of long ago. I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me. I have made known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. I say, my purpose will stand, and I will do what I please. You see, God is God. And as much as I didn't know what was going on, and as much as I didn't know what to do, he did. And it was through all of that that I was able to go from beauty to pain. I was able to go from these thorns and how God brought beauty out of all of it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please leave it down below. Do the like and subscribe things. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. God bless, and may you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.